Mark Houck, Republican for Congress in District 1. Why are you running for this office?
Well, it's a long answer, but I'll give you the short version. The Republic is falling apart, Larry. These are the same words that Congressman Scott Perry shared with me. He said, we're on the brink of losing this republic. We need good people in Washington, D.C., people of integrity. And so he put it to me to pray about, to think about. I approached him to ask him what his thoughts were. He shared with me, what life was like as a congressman. We had developed a bit of a friendship after he invited me to the State of the Union this past year. And after much prayer, we decided that we were going to throw our hat in the ring in August this past year and defend the Constitution and challenge the incumbent Brian Fitzpatrick.
Which part of Pennsylvania, Mark, makes up District 1?
Well, it's all of Bucks County, the third largest county in Pennsylvania, and a sliver of eastern Montgomery County. So everything makes up Bucks County and about 8 to 10 towns on the eastern side of Montgomery County.
Now, in your mind, what sets District 1 apart from other parts of Pennsylvania? What's special about it?
Wow, it's God's country out here. Bucks County is the land of William Penn. We have a beautiful piece of this wonderful Commonwealth, and what sets it apart, I think, it's a critical area of our country when it comes to races and elections, because there's 600,000 people in this county, and that's more than what's in the state of Wyoming. So not only is Pennsylvania a swing state, but Bucks County is really a critical seat. Currently, we have a Republican in that seat. We have a very slim majority in the House. So it's going to be a pivotal seat, and one we want to maintain as Republicans in the upcoming election.
You said that the Republic is falling apart. Can you give me some examples of what you mean, Mark?
Well, let's start with the obvious one, the clear and present danger at the border. We've never seen anything like that, at least in my lifetime. People are coming into this country with bad intentions. So our sovereignty is in jeopardy. Our children's lives are in jeopardy. The drugs that are coming in and the trafficking that's going on is just unprecedented. And it's a recipe for disaster. It's catastrophic, in the words of Ted Cruz. But I would say the biggest thing facing us right now, and the first time in 250 almost years that we've had this republic, that it's the first time that the government has been weaponized against its own people. And so that makes this election critical. Not the most important, as they would say at every election, but I would say it is absolutely, without a doubt, the most important election because of that reality, because of the weaponization of the government, because of the two-tiered system of justice. I personally know that. I've been victimized by the government, and that's why, our heart and mind was even open to running in the first place, that we have this amazing platform now and got support from all around the country. And so I think that's the biggest thing facing this republic right now, because what happens, Larry, if we lose the rights that we have and the freedoms we have. My Fourth Amendment rights were violated. First Amendment rights were violated. People are losing these rights. They want to take our guns away from us. They want more surveillance of American citizens. When that happens, we will lose our republic. So we're holding on by razor thin here, kind of majority going into this election.
You said earlier you had been talking to Congressman Perry, and what kind of insights have you learned from his experience? What did he share with you that might help you if you're elected?
Well, he just told me what life was like as a congressman. He has 2 little girls, and I have 7 children myself, and I'm a young father. I'm 49 years old. I have kids that are still with me in the home. So. Look, that's a reality that you would need to face. What does that look like for them? What does life in politics look like for the family? So he educated me on that. Didn't scare me, but it's a reality that we have to face, and that your family is in this with you. And unfortunately, good or bad, there's gonna be consequences with that. So we go into it with our eyes wide open, knowing that it's not a a very virtuous environment we're seeking to obtain, and how the children will be affected by it. So that was mostly his encouragement there for me, just to let me know how that goes. And then he just explained the landscape, politically speaking. He explained the landscape in D.C. as far as what we can expect from the president and possibly a new president like Donald Trump. So he explained to me what that would look like for us. So we talked about those things. This is back in June. Congressman Perry hasn't talked to me since because frankly, it's probably a little dangerous for him to talk to me right now.
Our viewers are meeting you for the first time, Mark, so let's explore your background because they want to know what kind of experience you have and see if it's relevant or applicable to being in Congress. I understand you're the founder and president of an organization called the King's Men. Just what is that?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit organization that I started, a 501c3 organization that I started back in 2004. So for 20 plus years, I've been running a small business. It has a footprint around the country and even the world for that matter. So the operation, while it's a small, ministry, so to speak, it has quite a range. And so learned a lot being a small business owner, running a business, managing a business, having oversight with the board of directors and governance there. So learning how things work in that way has been quite an education for me the last 20 years. I do have a BA from Catholic University, and that's in business, of course. Did that out of college. I worked for the county of Bucks in local politics with, the criminal justice side of things. And so I worked within the county, and that's how I got to know Mike Fitzpatrick, who was our former congressman. He was my commissioner at the time. But then I ended up getting my master's in education. I taught for a little while. Taught at the same school as Benjamin Netanyahu, which is right here in Cheltenham, Montgomery County. So, amazing school. Anyhow, so I have a wide range of experience. I also pursued professional football out of college. I was scouted by the New England Patriots. So I don't think that equates to being a better politician, but nonetheless, it is my background, and we achieved some level of success there, being a college football All-American as well.
Mark, I'm trying to get a firm grasp on what the King's Men is all about. You called it a ministry about. Just tell me, why did it need to be created, and try to state its mission briefly.
Oh, sure. Sorry about that. Well, look, it's a mission attempting to address what we have in this country and world, a crisis in manhood, a crisis in fatherhood. And so we address the crisis in masculinity as I saw it in my own life. When I started the ministry, the organization, I was a single guy, and looking for guidance in certain areas that I felt like the culture was not adequately supporting. And so as I looked to men to the left, to the right of me, I saw that they needed the help as well. So we started the organization. We have small men's groups around the country and in the world. We've had these groups at military bases in Afghanistan, South Korea. We do programs, workshops, conferences, retreats. Mostly what I do is lecturing. I do a lot of lecturing around the country, and just inspiring men to engage in their role as fathers, as husbands, as men in society. And so that's a lot of what I do, and that's the ministry is the platform for that.
So how do you suppose the tenets of the King's Men can make you an effective congressman?
Well, it makes me an effective communicator, right? We're dealing with people, and I'm lecturing thousands of people and probably hundreds of thousands of people in the last 20 years. You got to be a good communicator. You got to have a good message, and you got to be able to articulate a vision. You have to be able to articulate the vision not only for manhood, but in this case, it would be for the republic, for the citizens of District 1. And I'm there to be their voice, right? So I'm their mouthpiece in Washington, D.C. So I think, when it comes to that, when it comes to messaging, I've been equipped through the work that I've done to kind of articulate any message that obviously speaks to me, that would be important to me. But I think when it comes to my constituents, they're going to express to me what's important to them. And I have to bring that to Washington, D.C. And I think that is a nice dovetail for me.
Let's talk about the issues that are important to you during this campaign for Congress. And you had already mentioned, and I'd like you to expand on immigration at our southern border and what you would like to see done.
Well, if I had my druthers, we'd shut the border down right away. because we're hemorrhaging down there, and you can't get control of something till you adequately address it. And if it is a true hemorrhage, you have to tourniquet that, and you have to get that you have to stop it from bleeding. When it comes to immigration, I was just with USA Numbers, a lobbyist firm in DC. We can only handle up to 300 to 500,000 legal immigrants per year, and that's been in place for a long time. So we had that amount come through last month, right? So it's not possible to adequately control that. So either we enforce existing immigration laws, which at the minimum we need to do, but for me, I think we need to shut it down, get it under control, and reopen. So that would be what I would do. Look, immigration is a major part of congressmen and congresspersons' duty. And so that has to be job one, right? To me, that's more important, the security of our nation, than what's going on in Ukraine and Israel right now.
I was looking at your website, and you noted there that it would not be your job as a congressman to fund the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Mark, why not?
Well, because it's unconstitutional. When we look at the way the founding fathers set up the government, the House holds the money, the purse for the country, and so it's an unconstitutional program that needs to be at the state level. I mean, we can support those things and, of course, encourage those things, but when it comes to energy and independence there, and the things that have to do with the Environmental Protection Agency, that all should be driven by the states, not by the federal government. So that's my policy, and I could say the same thing for the Department of Education. I could say the same thing for the funding of Planned Parenthood. These are all unconstitutional things that Congress really has no enumerated power over. And so when we read the document, the Constitution, we see that that's not one of our controls there. And that's outlined in the 17 enumerated powers that are for a congressman. So again, it doesn't qualify. It's not constitutional.
Do you have a position on energy policy, Mark? Tell us.
Yeah, once again, another thing, we support energy independence, and we would support that, but it has to go back to the states. And of course, we would drive, that interest. So I support Donald Trump and what he was trying to do when he was president, where we almost were energy independent. I think we need to get back to that. I think our nation and all the people in our district, let alone the country, need to have that again, because we're hemorrhaging, for our family budgets with our gas prices, with our food. Certainly, we can produce enough in this country to feed the whole world. So, if we get ourselves in a position where we can be energy independent and not be dependent on countries to import our gas, our fuel, our natural resources, we're going to be a better nation overall. And I think we were working towards that. Sadly, those things were derailed when President Biden became president.
What about our military and veterans? Anything you want to do for them?
Well, look, there's an enumerated power for Congress, strong military. That's one of our four main duties. Again, immigration, military, weights and measures, and limiting government. Those are the four main areas of Congress. So military is going to be huge. We declare war. Of course, Congress declares war. We have not declared war in Ukraine, yet we're spending billions in Ukraine. This is going to put a lot of money back into taxpayers, District 1, and around our nation. So, by the way, when we defund all this unconstitutional stuff, we eliminate about 80% of our national debt, and that'll take some time to do, obviously. But back to the military. Look, my grandfather came in on the 25th wave at Utah Beach. He was a three Bronze Star winner, the most highly decorated anti-tank division under Patton. And so I have great respect and for those who have chosen to serve our country in the military. So as far as veterans go, I see it as one and the same as from a congressional standpoint, that, look, you're active or inactive, we got to take good care of you. You served our country, and strong military readiness, always about that. But we can't forget these heroes. We got to learn the lessons from the Vietnam War and what we didn't do for those soldiers. And now, we have many Afghanistan veterans in crisis over what they did over there and how they were removed from there. And you know what? We're losing 22 of them a day, Larry, through suicide. So we gotta support them in some way. And that'll be very much on my heart as a congressman.
Just for a minute, Mark, let's go back to the war in Ukraine. Do you support the way our country is currently funding this war?
Well, we're flipping the bill, though. The EU today just, we just found out that they're going to throw money finally into the pot. But look, we've been flipping the bill for that war, and look, I support the people of Ukraine. I support the injustice there, but that's not our war. It's a proxy war. It's not a war that Congress declares war, and yet we're sending billions upon billions of dollars over there. And Mike Johnson said it right. No more money for Ukraine till we get our border fixed. So I agree with him. We've done enough for Ukraine, I think, at this point. Let's let some other nations and countries help, which, again, the EU, finally, thanks to Hungary saying, okay, we'll help, is now getting involved. So I think that's important. The whole world needs to be involved. So unfortunately, America has been dependent upon, and frankly, the District 1 has been dependent upon. And I don't want our district paying that bill anymore.
What about support for Israel in the war with Hamas? I have a hunch you have similar feelings there.
Yeah, of course, I support Israel, and they're one of our greatest allies as a nation, and they've been good to us. Obviously, look, we support them, but again, it's not our war. We'll do what we can to protect our brothers over there and sisters over there. But like I said, we have not declared war. I would want limited appropriations for that, and have to look at exactly what that is. I know what's going on with Ukraine because I know 60% of our money that's going over there is unaccounted for. So why do we keep sending money and it's not going where we want it to go? I don't know the current landscape of Israel as far as what that looks like for us. I need to get more educated on that, but I would imagine if it does evolve in a similar way as Ukraine, then we better make sure we can account for that money. And I think as Congress, we have a duty to do that.
The subject of abortion can be a hot button issue here in Pennsylvania. What is your stand there?
Well, look, I was going to go to prison for 11 years for a preborn baby, so that's how I got into this situation. That's why I'm talking to you right now, because I'm a pro-lifer. But I understand the country. I understand it's an educational issue. It's really not a political one. We need to educate people on the issue, but the nation just isn't really ready to embrace a lot of the education that's out there. So my policy and my approach to the issue of abortion is, as a congressman, I'll never stand in the way of any legislation that gets in the way of saving lives. So what does that mean? That means that there's a vote on the House floor, let's say potentially for a 12-week ban or a 15-week ban on abortion. Well, in Pennsylvania, we have 24 weeks women can have an abortion. I would vote for that, even with rape and incest in that bill, because it's going to save thousands of lives. Let's say there's an Infant Born Alive Act that comes forward on a federal level, and there's rape and incest in there. You know what? I'm going to vote for that because it's going to save millions of lives. So that's how we're approaching. While I'm not going to champion a bill that is totally packed with all those exceptions, I won't get in the way of those exceptions when we have the opportunity to save children.
Now, I understand you were involved in an incident outside of an abortion clinic. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, this is back in 2021. I was there praying with my son, as I had been doing for the last 20 years, not with my son. And the last year, though, of that year, 2021, he was coming with me as a 12-year-old boy. I made a decision as a homeschool dad that I would bring my son with me there for some education and learning. Anyhow, he was being harassed and bullied down there by someone who was a volunteer worker of Planned Parenthood. And I've known that man for years. My son has met that man many times. Unfortunately, he just would not stop and verbally assaulting my son and violating his personal space. And I told him to stop, and he wouldn't. So I pushed the man, unfortunately, away from my son to protect him. It became a private criminal complaint that was dismissed at the Philadelphia court state level. No big deal to the Philadelphia PD or Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, the DA, or even to the Civil Affairs Department. After everything was dismissed in April of 2022, I was served a target letter by the U.S. Justice Department saying that I'm a target of a federal grand jury investigation under potential indictment under the FACE Act, which was a law that was created in 1994. Nonetheless, I wasn't indicted. After Roe v. Wade was overturned in June of 2022, June 24th, many pro-lifers started to be arrested and raided in their homes. It ultimately led to me being raided in my home in a pre-dawn raid at 6:30 in the morning on September 23rd, where federal agents came to my house and PA state troopers, 20 plus, with M16 guns pointed at me and pointed at my children, banging on the door at 6:30 in the morning, putting us all in harm's way. And when we told them we would come into to the Eastern District and present ourselves if they wanted to indict us, but no,
Hmm.
they wanted to humiliate, intimidate, and
Hmm.
scare. They put me in the federal court system. We were facing 11 years in prison,
Hmm.
$350,000 in fines, and 3 years supervised probation. We took it all the way to trial this past week, last year, and we won. We took on the full force of the government. 98% conviction rate, Larry, when they come after you.
Hmm.
We took on that full force of the government and we beat them. And so that's why we're in this race now, because we don't want what happened to us to happen to anybody else in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
I understand, Mark, that a whole year passed before charges were brought against you. Is that the case? Why the delay?
Right. So again, that incident was October 13th, 2021. Everything was dismissed April 22nd, 2022. And they raided my home September 23rd,
Mm-hmm.
2022. So that's almost a full year after the fact. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess they were gathering their information. Also, Roe v. Wade didn't overturn until June. So,
Right.
when that happened, that definitely weaponized the government. And but Joe Biden set his attorney general on the mission, along with Kristen Clark in Washington D.C., to go after pro-life people. And so
Mm-hmm.
these were cold cases, I guess. My case was dismissed, and but yet somehow still there to make a point. And unfortunately, they did. Now we're suing the government
Mm-hmm.
for prosecutorial misconduct, and we put that complaint in November, and now we're pending a response from Congress on that
Mm-hmm.
complaint. So
And just
that's
to
what we're.
make it clear to our viewers, you were acquitted of those criminal charges against you. So in the end, assuming the story's about to end, Mark, what's the lesson for you?
The lesson for me,
Yeah.
the lesson for me is, have faith, trust in God, and continue to do what His will is for your life. An unjust law is not a law at all, and we
Mm-hmm.
move forward knowing that there are things in this country that, like slavery and like civil rights, that at one time were in question, and people fought and stood up against them, just like William Wilberforce did, and we're in that time, for these little babies and children. There was a time in this country, Larry, when babies were not in jeopardy, and that was
Mm-hmm.
only 50 years ago. So, look, uh, that's the culture we live in.
Mm-hmm.
It's the reality of the culture of death that we have. So, the lesson for me is continue to fight the good fight,
Mm-hmm.
and that God's grace is sufficient, and He will see you through anything.
And speaking of fighting the fight, Politico reported that you raised $400,000 for your legal defense. Mark, how did you do that?
That's the kindness and generosity of the American people and the people all over the world. Um, after we were weaponized by the government, our family was victim by the weaponization. We were put in, the federal court, trial system, and I needed to get a lawyer. I needed to get attorneys. The Thomas More Society was there for me, a wonderful organization out of Chicago. But we had to get the best. We had to get the best
Mm-hmm.
attorney in Philadelphia, and he wasn't cheap, but he
Mm-hmm.
was good at what he does, and he did a great job, and we needed all that support and love of the world to help fight that fight.
Let's go on to some other issues, Mark. How about the cost of health care? Anything you'd like to do to help Pennsylvanians with that?
Well, like I said, the it's not really a power under Congress, but we do have some of these things. Look, you have to remember that for 100 years, we've been abusing these powers at the congressional level, and so it's not going to change overnight. So I understand there's going to be appropriations and omnibus bills that are going to have a lot of these things in them that we have to discern and look at. So when it comes to healthcare, I want to help our seniors, right? I want to make sure our seniors have what they need. When Obama tried to bail out Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and Chrysler back in his administration, he took all those funds to pay those bills from Social Security. He took all that money out of Social Security. So, look, we have a lot of seniors who cannot sustain themselves. So my heart is for them too. I want to protect our seniors. I don't want to neglect them. They're even discerning in this country. When is it appropriate for a senior to say that they're no longer able to contribute to society? I don't believe in that. I believe that, we have people in this country in their 90s who are offering great service and input and wisdom to all of us here. And so when it comes to healthcare, we better do what we can to help these seniors stay viable, stay lively and energized. And so, I'll be taking all that into consideration when it comes to these appropriations and so forth, but always through the lens of what's constitutional.
Any ideas that might reduce gun violence?
Gun violence. Well, look, my opponent has a 0 rating from the NRA. Let's break down gun violence in a way that makes sense to me and hopefully to the viewer of this interview. When Yamamoto came after the U.S. through his attack in Pearl Harbor, December 7th, he was asked after that attack that was successful, let's attack the mainland. And he said, you cannot attack the mainland, because he went to school here. And he said there's a rifle behind every blade of grass. This is the reason why our nation has never been attacked. We can argue 9/11 was an attack, but not in that way. This is why our First Amendment rights are still held inviolate. It is because of the Second Amendment rights. While we need to educate people, so to be that as it may, I totally respect and totally support access to for our citizens to have arms, the right to bear arms. Mm-hmm. That said, we need to educate people. The weapon is not the gun or the rifle or the assault rifle. It is the person. The person is the weapon. And so, this is the truth of the matter. You don't ban guns because people are bad people. You take care of the bad people. And that's really the main issue. And I think when we start to get there, we're going to get at the root of the problem. By banning an assault rifle, but allowing our U.S. Justice Department to bring them to people's houses like mine is not the answer. So the answer is education, and I think we should support all education when it comes to, issuing guns. People should have the opportunity to get safety instruction with all that.
Mark, we have less than a minute left. Use that remaining time and tell our viewers in District 1 why they should vote for you.
Well, look, we have a Republican incumbent who is in lockstep with Joe Biden. In other words, if you're not happy with Joe Biden's agenda, well, the existing Congressman, Brian Fitzpatrick, former FBI agent, he votes 70% of the time with Joe Biden. And so what I'm asking our people in our district, and then I'd ask people that would see this, that, if you're a Republican, to vote like a Republican. And to really think about those values and what it means to be a Republican. Brian Fitzpatrick does not embody those at all. He does not support the Constitution. In the last term alone, he had a 17% voting record and 28% overall in 8 years. And finally, just to say, we can't trust him, because when he first came into office, he wanted term limits, and he actually advocated that to the president at the time. And here he is going into his 9th and 10th term, and he said he wanted term limits when he came in. So we can't trust him, and I entrust the voters of the Commonwealth, District 1, to see that our platform is common sense and to vote with that, and to vote like a true American and a true Republican. Thanks.
Mark Houck, Republican for Congress in District 1, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Larry. God bless you.